So this week on Talk On to Walk On, we have guest of honour Patrick Walters, who this week has completed the Dublin Marathon as part of his drive to keep us all healthy, with a great mindset, well into midlife and beyond. So I'm going to ask Patrick how he got on. So tell us all about your Dublin Marathon.
Well, I finished. It was an absolutely amazing experience. Yeah. Right from, in fact, way back when I was training, but the actual run was far beyond my expectations in terms of the literally thousands of people on that route. There were no part, in fact, I lie, there was only one part of the route where there were very few people, and that was the furthest sort of bit of the route away from Dublin. It was in the beautiful countryside. So we were running along, you could look at the countryside, but otherwise it was absolutely rampacked, full of supporters, including yourself.
Yay!
You managed to work out where I was going to be at a particular point in time, but there's a story there, isn't there?
Yes, there is.
But no, starting, running it, managing to finish it, amazing. Yeah, absolutely.
So how'd you feel?
Right now, I feel a lot better than I did yesterday or the day before. So my legs are still a little bit sore. I'm told we're not allowed to run for something like a week.
Okay.
And I'm told I'm meant to sit down and lie down and be waited on.
If I was you, I'd be done. That's it. I've done a marathon of 58. I'm never going to run again.
Yeah, well,
don't tell me.
No, I was going to say, when I started this, I thought to myself, this can't be good for me. This can't be, to pound the streets, the roads for 26 miles. Having said that, 3 days later, I don't feel too bad. And of course, you get all that rush of all the feel-good hormones and that sort of thing. So maybe I should take away that never again sort of thing that I said.
It's a bit like giving birth. You say never again straight after.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know.
Yes.
But it's interesting. We will come to that actually, because we'll talk a little bit more about the marathon right now, but we will also talk about that potential doom and gloom feeling that I think a lot of us have in midlife about, oh, I shouldn't be running. Oh, it's going to destroy my knees. Oh, it's going to give me aches and pains. So there is a lot of negativity that surrounds running in particular in midlife and beyond, but we will come on to that. But first of all, why did you choose Dublin? And it was actually this time last year, we were sitting in Spain over a glass of wine, and you said about wanting to run a marathon. And my reaction was, as long as pick somewhere flat.
And that's sort of one of my criteria too. It actually, now I remember that conversation in Spain, but for me, it actually came a few days before. I was flicking through some old photographs that I had and came across this photograph of me running when I was 18 years old in Canterbury, and it was in a marathon. So October 1984 was the one and only marathon I'd run. And suddenly I can't remember what month it was, it suddenly struck me, wow, October 1984, next year, or later, I can't remember what it was this year, it'll be October 2024. That's 40 years later. Yeah. Why don't I, and I hadn't run any marathons or anything like that in between, I thought, well, why don't I run a marathon? So that's how I decided to think about running a marathon. And then in terms of why Dublin, it was why you get the Guinness afterwards. It was flat. I wanted to find a marathon in October that wasn't too far away, that had a reputation of having an absolutely brilliant atmosphere, that was flat, and where, because I was probably leaving it a little bit late, where I could find a charity place through a charity that meant something to me, or that I could sort of relate to. And so running for Marie Curie in Dublin,
one of the greatest cities in the world,
October 2024 was it. That became the goal.
No, it was a very quick and easy decision, I think, from my recollection and when we chatted about it. Talk a little bit about Marie Curie. I mean, I know you've done this on your Midlife to 100 Instagram, about the work that they do. Why between us we chose them? Because there was a long list of very worthy charities. Naturally, a lot of mental health ones. You have done previously half marathons for mental health charity. You've also did your Ironman for Claire's House, which is again very dear to our heart in Liverpool. But there was a prescribed list, wasn't there, of ones we could choose, and we did very quickly land on Marie Curie. Just tell us why we chose that one.
Yeah, those listeners who live in Liverpool will probably know about the Field of Hope that Marie Curie have. Marie Curie's emblem is a yellow daffodil. And in Sefton Park, where we go all the time to walk the dogs, there's somewhere called the Field of Hope, where in the spring, literally, I think there are tens of thousands of daffodils come to bloom. A large part of the park is absolutely stunning. These the daffodils, and it's Marie Curie's Field of Hope. Also, quite close to where we live in Woolton is the Liverpool Marie Curie Hospice. And for those listeners who don't know about Marie Curie, it's a charitable organisation that provides effectively end-of-life care. And they like to stress that it's for serious or life-ending illnesses. So, and predominantly it's cancer-related, but there are all sorts of other terminal illnesses that people can get. And they provide care in their hospices, as well as providing nursing and palliative care outside the hospices as well. And they're the UK's largest employer of palliative care nursing. And they do get some money from the government, but the vast majority of their funding comes from donations and basically the private sector.
Yeah, and we've lost both sets of parents, haven't we? And we've had our own experiences of end of life with all of them, and we just know that how important it is to that transition. If it's easier for naturally the person who's sadly passing away, but if it's easier for the family, and it's for want of a better phrase, reassuring, comfortable. I'm trying to think of the right words.
Yeah, there's
experience.
That's right.
It helps with. We were chatting to the representatives, weren't we, after the race in Dublin, and they were saying, the impact, the positive impact on the families and friends when they've had this incredible experience at the end of life definitely helps in their grieving process.
Yeah,
it's reassuring. It gives them, for want of a better phrase, a nice memory at a very difficult time.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really be prepared for in a planned sort of way for the end of your life.
Yeah,
but they try to do the best that they can to help you prepare and help you as family or family members, as well as your loved one who is getting that care, and they're experts in that. So they, for example, they know what happens to people's minds and people's bodies, and down to quite a lot of detail in terms of those final weeks and days. So to have that expertise and that knowledge is and to be able to talk and support families and relatives is just so important.
Yeah, it's invaluable. So again, a wonderful charity. And when we chatted after the race, I know you raced with Flo, who you want to give a mention to, but you said to me, we talked about mindset, and you said, and this is where those who donate to anybody doing a challenge just know that it's not just about the money, because you said that when you were hitting a little bit of a wall mentally, that you and Flo decided to list all the people who donated to try and remember. And that kept you going.
It did. In fact, it was Flo's idea. We were around kilometre 38, 39 out of 42. So we were coming to the end, getting to the serious tough end of the run. And Flo suddenly started saying, well, let's go through all the people who've contributed, who've donated, and started reeling them off, which was a lovely thing to be able to do. And again, it allowed the time to pass, and it allowed a very oh, who's that?
Okay.
Shall I
we'll have a little pause while we just
let the dog out.
Hendy.
So we're back. And doing something like that, remembering purposefully, intentionally remembering the people who contributed and donated.
Ah.
It was actually one little technique people suggested to get your mind off what would otherwise could be a painful stage of the run.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah,
so for when you do donate, because we do get a lot of people asking for donations, and it's not always easy to donate, but please know that even the smallest amount does make a difference, not just to the charity, but to actually the person doing the challenge. So big tick in the box for that mindset trick, I think. Just coming on next to, it is really inspirational, Patrick, that you did that. And, you are 58, and there are a lot of people out there, as we hinted at earlier, that will say, oh, it's not good for the body to be doing a lot of running, especially later on in life, because we lose muscle mass, and then the body naturally slows down as we get older. I'm guessing the heart doesn't pump the oxygen around as quick as it used to. So there is a lot going against you in terms of this particular challenge. But I think there's also I hope that you're going to say is that there's also a lot of positives if you go about it in the right way. Is that right?
Absolutely. You have to train. You can't do a marathon without training, because it is a very serious thing to do. But in Dublin, when you're running around and looking at your fellow runners, there were old people, there were young people, there were stick-thin people, there were, am I allowed to use the word, there were bigger people.
Yes.
All shapes and sizes, all running around. But one thing's for sure, all of them will have trained to a greater or lesser degree.
All different ages.
Yeah. And also the thing about running marathon, I think a lot of those people would be doing it for the one and only time. It'll be on a bucket list, and they'll say, I've got to run a marathon, and this is it. It's a massive thing. But something like running, let's talk about running without actually talking about, I think running a marathon is an extreme. Well, there's ultra running as well, which is even more extreme. But running, if you can run, even if it's for a very, very short time, it is good for you. It's movement. It's good for you. It's load-bearing exercise of some kind, even if you just did it for a few minutes. And
the key is to move, isn't it?
Yeah,
as we
the key
age,
is to actually get up
more.
And move.
Yeah. And I think, but for those who say, oh, what about your knees? What about, the impact potentially on your heart, that kind of thing. I know recovery played a massive part, because having been sort of part of your journey for the last how many months, recovery was key, which I think you played on that a little bit, but we won't get into that. I need to recover, but actually, it is actually really important, isn't it? And it's a key part of the training, which I've learned.
Yeah, it is. And it's just down to each person. For me personally, I don't think I ran on consecutive days.
Yeah, that's one of the tips, I think.
Maybe once or twice in 4 months. Yeah. But otherwise, I always allowed at least a day. I was only running 3 times a week.
Yeah.
So that was the training plan. If I can run 3 times a week and it was for 4 months, that was it. But yeah, recovering and sleep, allowing your muscles or your knees, your joints, the tendons, everything to recover, trying to stay fit and healthy and not falling ill was a big thing.
Another key part, which I know I contributed to, was I got you into the Pilates and the yoga. We got into that a little bit more, and they talk about strength training, again, being absolutely key as we get older, because they say the more we do when we're younger, the easier it will be when we're older. Yeah. But it's never too late to start, is it? Yeah. I've started later on in life. We know we're looking to adapt our strength training now that you've done the marathon. But the yoga and Pilates, I think, played a key part for somebody who's naturally is a bit more of an adrenaline junkie. It isn't important to adapt, to remember to just slow down and focus on your muscles and building that strength, isn't it?
No, that is important. And unfortunately, it's more time as well. So if you can get the time to do those sort of classes, then it's really important. I remember talking to somebody at the triathlon club I was a member of, and when I said, "Oh yeah, I'm doing yoga, I'm doing Pilates," they were saying, "Wow, that's really impressive. Yeah, that's strength and conditioning." And I said, "Oh, is it?" They said, "Yeah, oh yeah, it's absolutely important outside running. Yeah, that's great that you do it." And it, of course, is when you run, you just run in a straight line, don't you? And one thing about yoga and Pilates is that my legs and arms are waving all over the place in different directions. And you're putting loads on in different angles and directions and that sort of thing. And that's what's building up your strength. You're building strength in your ankles and so on.
But I think the point when we talk about this midlife to 100 and stay in this midlife mindset, we're not just talking about doing a marathon here. We're just talking about keeping fit as we age, and it's never too late to start. So these hints and tips can definitely be applied even if you're doing like the 0 to 5K, or even if you just want to do a short run or a long walk. I did a lot of walking. Mark Bankstone, little shout out to him. He came with me and we had to really pace around. I mean, I'm certainly not comparing what we did to what you did, but actually we lost a lot of calories and we hit over 20,000 steps just trying to get from point to point to point to keep up with you so we could be there to cheer you on. And we needed to be quite fit to do that. You know, Mark's 60, I'm 52, you know.
Didn't we work out the 12 hours or so from when you woke up to the end of the day, when you were doing a lot of walking, around the 12 hours, you burnt the same number of calories as I did in the 3 hours 44
it wasn't far
marathon,
off.
exactly. And that's what
really interesting.
and it's this the point about you can walk or you can jog very, very. In fact, the slower you run, the more fat that you're burning, and it's just fine. You don't have to go out and run quickly. You don't have to. Well, they say a brisk walk is good because it gets you. It's good to get you. If you're walking so slowly that your heart rate doesn't move at all, then that's not necessarily doing anything for you. But if you can elevate your heart rate just a little bit when you're walking, then that's good for you.
Or even, you know, if you walk, fancy running, but actually just know that walking in between running is okay. It's definitely not a sign of weakness at all. In fact, you know, it's probably an added benefit. So that's another top tip. Nutrition wise, you know, again, we've been looking and adapting our nutrition. You didn't really do, obviously you did carb loading beforehand, but in terms of the 4 months, I was conscious that you needed to eat more than me, which I always am anyway. I still think I was having my meals were bigger than yours. I love me food. But in terms of anything specific on nutrition,
I think
any tips on that?
I think we just ate normally what we normally, because we eat quite healthily. I was then, I can't remember about protein. I became then conscious with maybe about a month and a half to go. I bought myself a protein powder, which wasn't whey. It wasn't a whey powder. It wasn't a dairy product because I'm intolerant to those types of protein powders, whatever. So I managed to find a non-dairy one to supplement my protein. Having said that, there's so much differing information out there about protein. Elsewhere, I read if you have a normal, healthy diet, then you're getting enough protein, full stop. But anyway, I started eating more tuna and more eggs and taking the protein powder after I'd done a run. And then the carbo loading, which again, I learned something new that everyone thinks about a blowout pasta dinner the night before, and then somebody said no, it should be 2 nights before. In fact, you should start your carbo loading a week before. So we had a few debates and bigger meals.
I think the point on that is there is a lot of information out there and it can be really confusing. But I think the key is to look at some of this information and work out what works best for you. Is that?
Absolutely. Whether it's
you don't have to stick to a stringent plan and allow it to take over your life. Because I don't think it did. Well, I don't think it did. I thought it would a lot more, but it definitely didn't.
I think the things that I became quite sort of focused or let's say conscious of was the actual exercise, was the plan, the training plan. There was what I was eating, and then whether I was getting enough sleep. And those are the three things. But going back to the actual training plan, I used an app which I downloaded from the App Store for the first time ever, and I was just like following it like.
Yeah, you were very focused.
Very, very boring following. So I went in and I said, I'd like a 4-month training plan. I'm able to run 3 times a week. Can you please set up? And I had to put in some approximate times of previous 5Ks or 10Ks. I'd run a half marathon in June. So I put in those times, and then I came up with a training plan. And even that training plan just involved 1 long run a week. And the other 2 runs every week were much, much shorter. They only lasted sort of 30 minutes or 35 minutes. So, a long run, typically for somebody who's got a 9-to-5 job, the long run could be at the weekends, and then you could fit in a short run in a lunch break or before or after work if you can.
So, you know what? It's all inspirational, whether you want to take on a marathon or whether you just want to start running or at the very least exercising. Then we just wanted to share, Patrick's experience of, running a marathon at 58. How are you proud of yourself?
Yeah, of course I am. Yeah, no, I am. I do like the symmetry around the 40 years, October 1984 to October 2024. I still don't know. I quite like the idea of long events. Whether or not I do another marathon or if I do something different. But you know what I'm like. I quite like to have little goals.
I know. I'm waiting for the next one.
So we'll see.
Just on the age difference, obviously 18 to 58, I think another thing that we're all guilty of is yearning to be younger again when we're trying to do, in particular, fitness things. And it can stop us because we have unrealistic expectations of ourselves, and we beat ourselves up a little bit comparing ourselves to when we were younger. I know you're really competitive, but did you ever think about that time, about when you ran it when you were 18?
For a millisecond, I thought about it because I just knew that I wouldn't be. I mean, I didn't do an amazing time, but there's no way
you did a good time, Patrick.
Back when I was 18.
I thought you talked about this.
Yeah, no. Okay. When I knew I wouldn't be able to get that time again.
What was it?
3 hours 34. So I lost 10 minutes over 40 years. So 3 hours 34 when I was 18, and 3 hours.
That's brilliant.
44.
I actually didn't know that.
But the good thing is nowadays you can go online, you can go onto a website, and you can get age-related adjustments. So you can say, well, back when I was 25, I did a 5-kilometer run in this amount of time. Now I'm 45 or I'm 50. What's the equivalent time for a 45-year-old 50 if I did it in that time when I was? And there are very, very well established through masses of research, age-related factors that you can apply to make you feel, oh, actually, I'm doing okay. At the age of 50, 45, 50, I'm still doing effectively the same.
I reckon older and wiser comes into this because you didn't do a training plan, I bet, when you were 18. No, you did this time. So again, another positive for being older, I reckon.
Yes.
And wiser.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have, not only did I not do one when I was 18, but
because there's a sense of arrogance when you're 18.
I don't think I would have either have finished it or failed. Yeah, I may well have injured myself if I hadn't have done a training plan for this one. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, whether you're trying to do a 5K or a 1K or a 10K, if it's a big leap for you, as the marathon was for me, then there's so much available online in terms of resources for training. And like I said, just run slowly.
Yeah, and keep it simple.
Yeah.
Because again, I think we can all be guilty of feeling completely overwhelmed. And when you get overwhelmed, you then do nothing.
And the other thing I've got to say is that we're talking about running on this podcast, but it's if you've got bad knees or bad hips and you can't run, or it's very painful to run, we could have a whole another podcast talking about another form of exercise. So we're really talking about moving, keeping active, and exercise, aren't we? And if running's not for you, that I'm sure that there are other things. Whether it's doing a round of golf, or it's walking the dog, whether it's swimming, whether it's going to gym classes, it's just getting out and
getting moving.
Doing gardening. That's very, very good as well.
We love our gardening.
Yeah, I'm always aching in aches and pains after gardening.
I think you're going to be more ache and pain after the garden than after the marathon.
I hobble around.
I reckon it was the Guinness, after. Definitely helped you.
That gave me a headache.
We did go a little bit mad, didn't we?
They used to say Guinness is good for you until that ad was banned. But
you're in Dublin.
I know.
It's the only thing to do, isn't it?
I enjoyed several pints and then some.
If you have a look at Patrick's reel that is on his Instagram, it's only a minute long, but you'll see there's probably half of it has got every of the photographs have got Guinness in them.
I'd love to know the stats for how many pints of Guinness there's probably St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, well, that'll be
and then there's
insane.
the post-marathon drinks.
Yeah. So in conclusion, then, I'm incredibly proud of you. I just wanted to say that for the millionth time. And I actually loved being part of it. The support was insane. The people of Dublin, fair play to you all, because they came out in droves, didn't they? And welcomed people from all over the world to do this very special marathon. And I think we're now in 2024, we're heading into the end of the year, we're heading into 2025. We just wanted to put Patrick's experience very quickly on record, just as a way to inspire people, really, to inspire you to have a think as we head towards the end of the year, if there's something that you want to do. It doesn't have to be a marathon, it can be anything at all, to set yourself a mini challenge, a big challenge, a medium-sized challenge. Patrick, in conclusion, what would be your top tips to our listeners when they're thinking about setting themselves a challenge? We'll come on to the final marathon tips, which we will give for those who are interested in a marathon. But what are your tips to people who, in midlife, are thinking, it's a bit too late for me to do that?
Okay, well, firstly, set yourself a goal. So find a goal you want to achieve. So once you've got that target, you've got to have a plan to get to that goal. And I would absolutely advocate getting a training app. So go online, download an app for doing a training plan. If you can get a buddy that you can train with and then ultimately do the run with, that's great for accountability. Yeah. Makes you turn up for training. And it's a great, some of these long runs get very, very boring. They're very long, so you can chat. In fact, if you can talk all the way around, you're doing the right running at the right speed. It's very, very slow. So that's great. Look after yourself. Try to stay fit and healthy. Try to ward off coughs and colds if you can, and mainly enjoy. Try to enjoy.
Yeah, do something that's going to bring a smile, even though there's going to be a little bit of pain along the way.
Yeah,
you've got to remember it's got to be worth it. Yeah.
And all those endorphins that you get flowing around your body after you've done a bit of exercise are all there as well.
Okay. And so now coming on to the marathon, if anybody, have a little Google and you see, obviously they're all over the world. They're quite tricky to get into, but they're not impossible to get into. That's another top tip. Have a little look. And if you find somewhere that you fancy next year and you want to apply and you're hesitating, what would be your, again, top tips for that?
Or drop me a line. We can talk about it.
There you go.
You could always try to persuade me to run it too. You weren't expecting that.
No, I actually was expecting that. Yeah. If you are not on YouTube, you will not have seen the look on my face then.
If you
can picture it.
If you find somewhere, then read the reviews from other runners. When the event's been held in previous years, and talk to people. Just find out more about it.
Yeah. And if you've got a partner who you're living with, send them my sympathy if you do choose to run that marathon. But I think my top tip for them would be, let them get on with it, be supportive, be adaptable, and at the same time listen to what they're doing, because it isn't always about the big picture. I learned an awful lot about strength training, recovery times. It's not all about speed. It's, and about the benefits of moving and setting yourself a challenge. Patrick always inspires me, and I definitely learned a lot along the way and had a great experience too. So it's not all about just about the runner, and of course it's about the charity that you do it for, which I think ultimately is the most important reason to do stuff, because these charities do need our support.
Yeah.
So here's to you setting yourself a challenge in the new year, or even today. It's never too late.
And keep on running.
Keep on running.
Stay healthy.
Thanks.
If you've enjoyed listening to our Talk On to Walk On podcast and you want to know more about our coaching, mentoring and talks offer, then go to our website, talkontowalkon.com. If you're listening to the audio version of our podcast, don't forget you can also watch full episodes and view highlights on our YouTube channel. Obviously, if you would like to sponsor our podcast, we would also love to hear from you. So let's connect, have a conversation, and you never know where it will lead.